Hey everyone, and welcome back. As you may have noticed, I did take a short break to work on some other projects, but I'm back and here today to give you my top 10 favorite classic films of all time. Now, I don't necessarily think that these are the best made films, however, they are my personal favorites. Within the last decade alone, we have gotten our fair share of instant classics, including but not limited to Frozen, The Avengers, and John Wick. However, I do not consider it a true classic until it's hit that 20-year mark. So today, I'll be sticking to films mostly from the 70s through the 90s, as that's where the films that really captured me are. Now keep in mind, this list is purely subjective, and there will be films on my list that will not be on yours, some that may be higher or lower than you'd agree with, and some that I just won't even mention. I considered 40 to 50 films and rewatched a good chunk of them to fill in those last remaining spots that I had. However, there are still some that I have yet to see. There are just so many movies out there and I cannot watch them all as quickly as I'd like to, new or old. But without further ado, here are my top 10 classic blockbusters of all time. Kicking off the list, I have Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The character of Indiana Jones was highly influenced by those 1930s matinee adventure series such as Flash Gordon, The Green Hornet, and Riders of Death Valley. So we've definitely seen a character like Indy before. However, George Lucas and Harrison Ford forged such a unique character with a story told in a different style. Plus, John Williams' score was able to give us another component to latch onto that helped make this character so legendary. George Lucas was also inspired by real archaeologists like Hiram Bingham and Sir Leonard Woolley, which obviously helped create the character of Indiana Jones. And I think that helped give us something entirely new and fresh that somehow still felt familiar. But besides Indy himself, the story is quite remarkable, revolving around the Ark of the Covenant, which the Nazis want to use to grant their armies invincibility. And Indy, a full-time archaeologist and professor who uses his knowledge to treasure hunt, must travel overseas to put together the clues in order to find the Ark before the Nazis can. The story is a great mystery action adventure with a witty, charming protagonist and is well equipped with high stakes and chilling surprises. This film magnificently established the character of Indiana Jones and helped him to go on to become the second greatest film hero of all time, according to the American Film Institute. Moving on to number 9, I have The Princess Bride. I haven't seen this film for quite a few years, but there was no way I wasn't going to include it on my list. Similar to Indy, this film brings everything to the table. Mystery, comedy, magic, fantasy, adventure, monsters, romance, you name it. This film is still so relevant today that even Deadpool re-released its sequel during the holidays, with Fred Savage returning to play the adult version of the grandson who was originally hearing the story of The Princess Bride. This film is so exciting and it grabs your attention immediately. It's genuinely funny with a solid script, and the actors all capture their characters on a personal level with real care. The world building isn't way out there, but the simple world that it establishes allows for all eyes to be on the wonderful adventure and magnificent cast. If you've never seen this film or have never even heard of it, I can guarantee that you've heard some quotes and maybe even seen some clips from it, especially this one.
Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die!
At number 8, I'm cheating with a tie between Die Hard and The Matrix. These are both films I had to rewatch for this ranking, and I was still torn after watching. They both bring something unique, but also have their own advantages over the other. Die Hard is a rather simple, linear story about a cop from New York who has to take down a band of financial terrorists, all on his own in a Los Angeles skyscraper. We really get to know and sympathize for John McClane, as we get to spend a lot of time with him alone and see his decision making and his morals. He's also a flawed character who learns to be better by the end, which makes you leave the movie loving him even more and wanting to see more of him. Now, Neo from The Matrix is similar in some ways and a lot different in others. Instead of watching him grow in his flaws, we see him grow in order to step up to the challenge at stake. He's the chosen one who will help win the battle against the machines who have taken over and enslaved humankind. But he doesn't believe in himself until he starts understanding how much others believe in him. He was a pretty morally corrupted person in The Matrix, and seeing what is at stake, he realizes just how much more he can truly be. The story is a real trip with awesome special effects. The Corridor crew here on YouTube has done some in-depth analyses of those special effects in their VFX artist react videos. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to learn more about how they shot certain scenes in The Matrix, definitely go check them out. Now I'd say if you're in the mood for a crazy sci-fi action film, then definitely go with The Matrix. But if you want a more character-driven action film, then Die Hard is where it's at. These films both have a huge following and have influenced our culture and the cinema that we enjoy today, and it just didn't feel right leaving either of these off this list. At number 7, I have Monty Python and the Holy Grail. One of the most influential and hilarious comedies, Monty Python pulls no punches even during the opening credits. This film is always delivering solid humor, with basically every scene being highly quoted and prevalent in social media and memes.
You've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I hadn't watched it until my roommate in college recommended it to me, and honestly, this is probably one of the best films to watch with close friends. It just gets funnier and funnier, and the whole movie just flies by. Plus, you'll all be quoting it for years on end. We still quote it today, especially, "Run away! Run away!"
Run away! Run away!
I'm a real sucker for King Arthur and myths and legends like the Holy Grail, so the film was already a super interesting concept for me, but the way they went about it is just absolutely hysterical. This film might not be for everyone with its pokey humor and somewhat stale plot, but it's 100% a movie that I always enjoy rewatching, and I'm definitely in the large group that deem this a classic. At number 6 is a sci-fi action mystery that lies somewhere between the spectrum of Matrix to Die Hard, and that's Men in Black. I loved watching this one as a kid with my dad, and the more that I grew, the more I was able to understand and enjoy. Its world building, its comedy, and the performances of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones make this an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. It's weird, it's gross, it's exciting with high stakes, and filled with moments of how are they gonna get out of this?
Proactive midwives at 54th and Madison. You're headed out of town, Reggie. What's going on?
We just don't like the neighborhood anymore. Just some of the,
Similar to Die Hard, we spend a lot of time with Jay and get to see what makes him tick. He's the street-smart hothead, while Kay is the more book-smart deadpan. And they make for a hilarious and interesting character duo, and the story that this film provides makes for great moments with these legendary characters. The designs for the aliens are super unique, and they help create this new kind of setting for a film that I haven't seen before. And the twist at the end makes for a shocking, emotional moment that I will not spoil in case you're one of the few who have yet to enjoy this film. Starting off the top 5 is a familiar one if you've seen my past top 10 videos, Home Alone. Now, I have yet to meet someone that does not adore this film, and I think that really says a lot about it. It's iconic for the wet bandits, the hilariously large and dysfunctional family, the fact that these parents forgot their 8-year-old son at home while they're off to Paris, and of course, Kevin's master plan of booby traps. The humor is hard-hitting, and yet the movie is still jam-packed with emotion that we can all sympathize with. And on a budget of just $18 million, this film drove home $476 million in the box office alone, which was 30 years ago. I look forward to watching this one every holiday season, and I just couldn't help myself from including it on this list. Moving on to number 4, I'm gonna have to call on the Ghostbusters. From the scares to the soundtrack, from the visuals to the awesome cast, this classic brings a lot to the table. There's a reason this movie is still referenced as much as it is, such as in Stranger Things, Halloween playlists, costumes, and haunted houses, and even video games like Luigi's Mansion. This film is so iconic that practically everyone has seen it and or knows all the words to Ray Parker Jr.'s #1 hit. Bill Murray's comedic timing and delivery is spot on here, which helps to liven up the story and the fairly easy first half. The score and the scares help give us some sense of stakes, and Ivan Reitman did a great job at getting this movie to really pull you into the world and care. Though this film does have some problems with pacing and some cliches, the movie still lands with every audience. This was never just a movie, it was a movement. Before I dive into my top 3, here are a few notables that just barely didn't make the cut. The Terminator, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, Forrest Gump, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. These are all films that I adore from the 80s and 90s, and I'm sure a few of them might be on your list as well. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We talk about basically everything here, and I would love to hear your thoughts. But with that said, let's move on to number 3. At number 3, I have Back to the Future. It's hard to find a list out there talking about classics or best 80s movies without seeing Back to the Future, and that's because it's honestly one of the best. It touches on that moment when a kid must come to terms with his parents' inadequacies, which is just one of the many steps to growing up, while still delivering a fun and exciting and rather uncomfortable story about time travel. One thing this movie does better than the ones below it on this list is that it's purposeful. Every scene serves a purpose that ties into the overall arc plot, and yet they never have to sacrifice humor or quality dialogue to do so. It's exciting and relatable from start to finish. It's given us some awesome scenes that we still reference today, and its impression on the industry is still prevalent, inspiring shows like Rick and Morty and its plot device of time travel in movies like Avengers Endgame, even though technically its theory of time travel isn't 100% correct.
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit?
My runner-up is a longtime favorite of mine, and is actually one that helped me get into the horror genre in the first place, Jurassic Park. Most people my age don't know that Jurassic Park was actually intended to be a horror back in 1993 when it originally came out. However, people today are very desensitized, and the movie just has so much charm and humor that it comes off more of a fantasy action. When Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came out, writer Colin Trevorrow and director Juan Bayona said that they were returning to the franchise's roots of horror, and I was ecstatic. Now, say what you will about Fallen Kingdom, but that film has arguably one of the best opening scenes for a horror. Jurassic Park is probably my favorite Steven Spielberg directed movie, as it has one of the best ideas for a film, provides awesome visuals of dinosaurs come to life in our world, has the hilariously charming Jeff Goldblum, and has one of my favorite, if not best, musical theme of all time. The film also proposes some philosophy, offering the question that if we are able to bring back extinct animals, even ones that we did not cause the extinction of, is it our duty to do so? When does science reach its limits of morality? Guys, I love this film. I always go and see it in theaters whenever it comes back for a limited time. I mean, it's just such a huge part of my life, and it sparked my love for the horror genre, putting it comfortably into my number 2 spot. Moving on to my number 1 classic blockbuster, I have Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I know this might seem like a joke, but if you know me at all, you know that I love mysteries and you know that I love animation, and seeing the amazing technical prowess that this film offers while delivering both of those things is a testament to classics. The acting definitely comes off cheesy at times, but that's part of its charm for me. Plus, knowing that these actors are often interacting with an invisible character on set really makes you appreciate it all. Which leads me to those interactions of real-life characters and animated characters who are added later. Often you'll see Toons using real-life objects such as guns, chairs, and cars. The master puppeteering they had to do to make this a reality was a huge task, but they pulled it off and really made this movie come to life. The wacky and silly Toons paired with a deadpan detective who dislikes Toons makes for some hilarious situations.
Drink the drink.
But I don't want the drink.
He doesn't want the drink. He does.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You don't.
I do.
You don't.
I do.
You don't.
Listen, when I say I do, that means I do.
This is also the only movie we will ever get to see Looney Tunes and Mickey Mouse & Co. in the same movie. The only reason we got it this one time is because no brand is given more screen time than the other, and no character ever really wins. Who Framed Roger Rabbit delivers a fun mystery with creative characters and hilarity at every turn, while also pulling off some fairly advanced techniques for its time. It's a classic that the whole family can and will enjoy. Well, there you have it, my top 10 favorite classic blockbusters of all time. Let me know down in the comments below what your top 10 are, or even just your top 5. I'm currently finishing up my ranking video for all the MCU movies from Phase 1 to Phase 3, so expect that sometime next week. But until then, take care everybody.